Cush Sovereignty 2, Black Love Chapter 1, Mammalean. There's a lake that sits in the northwest corner of a town known to many as Tallulah, in the state of Louisiana. This lake, which has no name, is fed by many small streams filled with catfish, bass, perch, brim, and crayfish, that many referred to as crawdads. In the southwestern corner of this lake lies 99 acres of land, and the land itself was filled with wildlife, where the locals referred to as Good Eden. This land also yielded various herbs and spices that grew wild. The scent surrounding this area was unique and relaxing. However, this lake, this land in this town, had been in this family for centuries and was marked off by a fence with signs that read, "No trespassing." They put these signs up for strangers, for the people in this community knew better. Weeping willows, draped over the lake like an umbrella. A variety of pine, magnolia, and sycamore trees covered the land. A few hammocks were strategically placed, where one would just lay down and sleep away their problems, for the smell of lemon balm, thyme, and lavender, which were planted for aromatherapy. This lake, this land, and this lady who owned the land stood 5'2", was as healthy as a bull and had the strength of one. One might say she was the town's psychologist, counselor, herbalist, and healer. She was married for 50 years to her late husband, Joseph, whom many called Papa Joe. Their marriage was a blissful union, and all saw it as a valid symbol of what love and marriage looks like. They bore 13 children, all of whom were intelligent and wise. She had the courage of 10 men and the wisdom unknown to anyone nearby. She lived alone now, but was never lonely. People would come from miles to listen to her knowledge, and she had the humor many enjoyed. Before his untimely death, just like his wife, Papa Joe enjoyed helping people. He took 2 abandoned buildings on their property and renovated them to do just that. Papa Joe built their home in front of 2 abandoned buildings. These abandoned buildings were once schools centuries ago. Wright Elementary, where he made half of it into a community center and the other half a vegetable and herb garden for his wife, and Reuben McCall High School stood to the left side of their home. The high school had 2 large doors, which were placed on the south side of the building, where he kept refrigerated equipment for the meats. Solar panels were mounted on the roofs of all the buildings. The high school's second floor was a processing facility for butchering and curing the meats. On the north side of the building were plenty of cows, goats, and one enormous fish tank, one could only imagine, and located around the building were plenty of fowls, turkeys, ducks, and chickens. Wright Elementary also had a few fowls here and there, but it was mostly used for herbs, fruits, and vegetables. There were also infused oils, essential oils, and homemade soap. They also added a second story for homeless people who helped around the place. The couple enjoyed teaching and educating the orphans and special needs individuals who lived within the area until Papa Joe's death. Shortly after, their children left home to start a family of their own. This same lady started feeding and making hemp clothing for many of the needy people in the area. Many of those whom she helped would come and help her with these facilities, as a sign of appreciation for the unwavering generosity she had shown to them. She always had more help than needed, but never rejected their support. This lake, this land, and this property belonged to Kakahoya, which means, my eldest, little sister, but everyone called her Mammalean. Being a descendant of White Bear, she too could trace her lineage as far back as the birth of Adam, the first man, and she was proud of that. She spoke 8 different languages, including sign language. Mammalean was a spiritual woman who talked to Sabaoth regularly and was often visited by Mletsi, Yael, and Mshika. She had a gift that allowed her to be emotionally linked to individuals. They knew it and loved her for her compassion. She would help people whether she knew you or not. Just the thought of someone being in distress before that thought was even processed. Many say Mammalean would be there knocking on your door with food, clothing, or whatever was needed, and then some. One thing about Mammalean, she didn't play when it came to people trying to take advantage of her and hers. If you didn't know her, it would have been the only way anyone would dare try it. She was not afraid of death, and knew martial art just as well as any man. She was a hilarious woman and a woman who loved love. One homeless man living in her establishment was an old man named Valley from Delhi, Louisiana. He had been there for a few years after his wife died. It was said that they found him wandering the woods in disbelief, confusion, and depression. Mammalean went looking for him one day and found him in a lake fully clothed, laughing and shouting at the fish. "Valley? Valley!" shouted Mammalean. "Kakahoya? Is that you?" Valley replied. "No, you old fart. I'm a black bear coming to eat your ass. Now, tell me, what cha doing in this pond acting like a fool, for?" Climbing out of the pond as Mammalean reached out her hand, to help him, "If you don't get cho ass out of this water." Valley, crying, looked up at Mammalean. "My wife used to come here and fish, every so often." Mammalean looked at Valley. "Baby, your wife has been gone damn near a year now." Valley cried out loudly, "How long will I feel this pain?" Mammalean smiled, "Always. As long as you loved her, that pain will never go away. Now, you got to snap out of it, and gone on back home." Valley shook his head. "No, Kakahoya, I could never go back there. You can have that house, and do as you please with it. The kids are gone, and it's just me now." Mammalean felt his pain. "Well, I just finished making some extra rooms, out of Wright Elementary. You can stay there, until you are ready. You can't stay here in the woods like your ass is John the Baptist. Come on here, 'cause you smell like two skunks, during mating season." Valley immediately moved into Wright Elementary, taking only the clothes on his back and helping Mammalean around the place. He was a very hard worker, and soon he knew everything that had to be done, like clockwork, and has worked there ever since. He took charge of the place whenever Mammalean had to travel. "Valley? Valley," shouted Mammalean. "Yes ma'am," said Valley. "Man, what I done told you about you calling me ma'am? We're the same age, and you got me feeling like I'm much older than you, even though you look twice my age. Now, how many times have I asked you to call me Mammalean or Kakahoya?" Valley said. "Yes." Valley caught himself. "Yes, Kakahoya. You needed something?" Mammalean said, "Have someone go fetch my grandson, Cush, and tell his mother I need him for a few days. We gotta go to Lake Providence together." Valley said, "Yes, ma'am." She looked at Valley. "If you keep yes, ma'aming me and you gonna fight with your ugly ass." Valley smiled. "Well, what all do you need for your trip?" "I'll get some of the help to pack up a wagon for ya," Mammalean said. "Yeah, damn. Okay. I do need some stuff whipped up. You're always a step ahead of me, old man. I need." Scratching her head, "Give me about 6 dozen eggs, a case of chicken, 2 cases of fish, and half a cow, butchered up nice and pretty like. Bring me a vegetable case filled with okra, tomatoes, onions, and things like that there." She shook her head and said to herself, that should do it." Valley walked off and told a few men what she needed, and they rushed off. By this time, Cush was 14, and had less than a month before he turned 15. He was a bright, as well as a handsome young man. His locks were on his shoulders, he had read the Torah over 40 times, and he would often visit his grandmother. During this time, a minor conflict was brewing up between the Wakatilians and the Anakitas over the Mississippi Bridge. The Anakitas were trying to charge a very high toll to cross it. Samuel had gathered up 5,000 Wakatilians and had been gone for months, occasionally returning for a day or two. Cush was walking up to Mammalean's house. "Hey, you. What you walking for? Did I not say to make haste? I'm trying to get to Lake Providence before Christmas, and it's May. If you don't hurry your ass up, you got everybody waiting on your ass." Mammalean shouted. Cush started running. "Yes ma'am." Looking at Valley while pointing at Cush, "You see. He can call me ma'am. Your old ass can't." Valley smiled. "Yes ma'am." Mammalean laughed and quickly frowned. "Ha ha he hell. I'm a Knock your ass out one of these days. Keep playing with me, just keep playing with me. By that time, Cush had jumped on the wagon and she shouted to the 6 horses pulling her wagon, "Get tee up." "What's the matter, baby?" Cush looked up at her. "Ain't nothing wrong, Mammalean." She stared at him. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Cush smiled because Mammalean had that gift. At times, no one enjoyed being around her because she felt their emotions as her own, and she knew when you were lying. So, if you didn't want her to know something, you simply just didn't go around her. However, even that wouldn't work. She would come looking for you and tell you how she felt your presence, whether it was happy or sad, she knew it. "Yes, Mammalean," Cush said. He paused. "There's this girl." She interrupted him. "I knew it, I knew it." Embarrassed, he said, No, Mammalean, she had to move to Lake Providence, 'cause her father gone during this Mississippi Bridge conflict, and her mother had to take care of her mother, 'cause her grandfather gone as well. Mammalean said, "Son, love is strange, yet a powerful thing. One of our ancestors was so much in love that he waited for nearly 35 years to marry the love of his life, at the ripe old age of 55. They had their only child, Justin." Mammalean saw he was still embarrassed, and left it at that. 30 minutes had passed, and they were heading north to the bend on Highway 65. Mammalean and Cush had a trivia game they played when they were together from time to time, and she loved how well he played her favorite game. "Who was Joseph Chateauir?" Mammalean asks, Cush said. "The Caribbean leader of the First and Second Carib War." Mammalean shook her head, and made a funny look. "What years?" Cush shook his head, 1769 to 1796. Mammalean said, "Wrong. 1797, Cush said, "by 1 year." Mammalean said, "Almost doesn't count." Cush said, Okay, Tupac Shakur." Mammalean quickly said, "Born, Lesane Parish Crooks, on June 16, 1971, died September 13, 1996, also known by his stage names Tupac and Machiavelli. He had several family members of the Black Panthers, Mutula Shakur, his stepfather, Assata Shakur, his stepaunt. Billy Garland was his biological father, and Afeni Shakur was his mother, born Alice Faye Williams, January 10, 1947 till May 2, 2016. She was also an American activist. Cush smiled. "Goodness gracious. That's not even the question, Mammalean. You just took off. The question is, what album was 2 of America's Most Wanted on?" Mammalean said, "All Eyes on Me, 1996. Then she said while she was shaking as if she was singing and dancing, "Ain't nothing but a gangster party." They both started laughing. They played the game for a while, and then Cush thought about his grandfather. "This thing they are doing in Mississippi is getting worse. I think they are trying to start a war or something." Mammalean turned and said to Cush, "Sam-El is all right. I see him and your father laughing and joking around with some of his friends. They are guarding the west side of the bridge now. He's going to be all right. Sabaoth got him covered, and besides, it's not his time, no time soon, anyways. Sam-El is a mighty man around here and, when it comes to fighting, he can hold his own. Everyone within Sam-El's reach is enlightened. Hell, I hear tell it you got skills too. But that's Sam-El doings. He's teaching you everything he knows because you have to join the military for 2 years. That's mandatory for everyone." It always amazed Cush at Mammalean's gift as he turned to her. "Thanks, Mammalean. Pops and Dandaddy have been teaching me ever since I can remember. I just miss them." Shaking her head, "No problem, baby. War is how me and my family came here," Mammalean explained. "We were sent here because of a Buxigan." Cush interrupted, "A Buxigan?" Dandaddy never finished his story. Mammalean looked at Cush. Where did he stop? Cush looked up as he thought to himself, and had a look of confusion. Well, they were heading to Tucson and, hold on, Mammalean. A Buxigan wasn't born yet, I don't think he was even a child when all this happened. Mammalean interrupted, "Nah, child, I don't really know many of the details about how they got there. I know about when they got there. You see, I love stories of love, and those are the ones I remember the best." Cush got excited. "Tell me one of your stories." Mammalean shook her head, but it was more of a sigh of release. "Well, it's a long story, and I'll tell you when we get back so I can relax and explain everything, but I can tell you a short love story that I was finna tell you when we were back there, but you got all embarrassed about your little girlfriend." Cush began blushing as she continued. "This is a story of how our bloodline almost didn't make it. It's because of that word called love, me and you are here today." Mammalean gave Cush the reins. "I got to put something on my stomach first. Here, you take these for a minute while I fix us some teat. You's hungry?" Cush replied, "Yes ma'am." She grabs a loaf of homemade honey wheat bread, some tuna, celery, and added some mayonnaise. "Looks like someone didn't put this mayo up. Valley, that man is a damn slob, can't clean up nothing, and act like he can't put up nothing either. What is a few steps to put this in the icebox? If this mayo done gone bad." Mammalean looked at the jar careful, "But it still looks good, I think." Adding a small amount of mustard and she whips them up some sandwiches. Let Mammalean tell you of a beautiful love story. Everyone knew Mammalean loved to tell stories of love and determination. It was part of her gift, and she enjoyed it. She placed the condiments in some ice and handed Cush a tuna fish sandwich saying, "This is based off a true story. It actually happened." Rubbing her hands with her fingers. "Where do I start?" "Well, about 1200 years ago, or so I guess, back in 1992, when Ajani, our ancestor, most people knew him as Dasinga, when his firstborn son was born, named Justin. You see, our descendant, in which our bloodline flows, had the same name as his brother after he died at age 26 of sickle cell anemia, back in a time when marriage was a complicated thing for people of color. Slavery had ended about 120 years or so. Jim Crow laws were still in effect, but hidden. Women were given education, and men, well, not so much. There was a great division, but this was a well-thought-out plan by the majority, and they started separating us without us knowing it. The women became the breadwinners. And men, well again, they were being rejected for not being the providers of the household. A well-thought-out plan, if I must say so, myself. Our men were being effeminized and incarcerated with lengthy sentences, while our women became masculine and were allowed to advance globally. The government created a wedge between the two. Son, back then, no one saw anything coming regarding the mind games and manipulation they did to our people, until it was too late. They called the few who saw it, and spoke up while it was happening, conspiracy theorists. Mammalean stopped the wagon. "Whoa," she said as the horse came to a complete stop. Looking at Cush, in any other country in this world, people can go back centuries in their genealogy, and you couldn't shame them for having blonde hair and blue eyes, but they use stuff like that to shame us. You see, in these other countries, their genealogy was written in legal books by their families and government, their birth, children, and marriages. You might have had a relative or two who were no good, but you still had a sense of pride about your family. Oh, but not here. They shame us for everything, for having dark skin, woolly hair, or being ashy. But they stole our culture, and made it theirs. Giddy up. Mammalean shouted to the horses as she continued, but as I was saying before, Dasinga lived during this time frame. He had 2 girls and 2 boys, and both boys were named Justin. One boy, by a woman who despised him, that's the one that died, and by another one, his long-lost love, Deke. However, I will get to that soon. Now, our ancestor wasn't a bad guy. He had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, after serving in the military to pursue a career as a songwriter. He, too, was a great poet as well. In those days, they paid you good money to write songs. She smiled. He called it poetry in motion. During that time, we had presidents, nationwide military units, and you had to pay rent and mortgages. Cush had a funny look on his face. Mammalean smiled. I'll explain that too later, but we had an entirely different world back then. Anyway, he experienced significant difficulties in life, as a matter of fact, because we do have some time. Why on earth did Dasinga move there? One may ask. Cush said, I didn't ask you that, Mammalean. Mammalean looked at Cush. Boy, hush, and let me tell you my story. Why on earth did Dasinga move there? One may ask. Mammalean looked over at Cush. He smiled as she continued, Sabaoth destined it. Before joining the military, he lived in Shreveport, Louisiana, because his mother worked as a civilian for the armed services. After he left the military, he returned, but nothing had changed with racism, and the likes of it. He was a part of a spiritual community dedicated to Sabaoth led by the great prophetess Akelammelech. Cush smiled. Oh, I heard of her. Mammalean gave Cush a look again and he smiled again. He missed, and loved this small community with Akelammelech when he returned, but things had gotten worse since he left. Many of the people in the community would listen to his many adventures in the army, and after a while we fed up also about the injustices against our people and they wanted to see the world outside of Louisiana.